Okay, so to do this question, we said x is element R. This means that all numbers are included, including fractions and decimals. But the first step was to bring over the plus 1, and what we end up getting is 7 minus 1, which is 6. 2x is greater than or equal to 6. X is greater than or equal to 6 divided by 2. Now, what you have to remember about this is because it was multiplication on the left hand side, means it's division on the right hand side. So the two terms of division. We didn't have to change the sign around in this case because it was a plus 2 and not a minus 2 that we're dividing by. Now we know that x is greater than or equal to 3. So the next step, doors open. The next step now would be to draw the number line, okay? Now it wants all numbers that are bigger than 3. So in order to do this, we just write down, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Basically, there's too many numbers to write down. Because it's x element R, we know the first number that's included is 3. The filled in dot means that the 3 is included. The reason we know the 3 is included is because of the equal sign, greater than or equal. Then from this point onwards, what we do is we shade in the line. Sometimes you can use a different color to show that you've shaded in the line, and you shade it all the way up to the arrow, and then the arrow tells you that it goes on forever. Okay? Now we're on the next question, which we said will be number 3. And read out number 3, please. 5x minus 2. 3. 3x plus 1. And x is element of? Now lads, this question here says x is an element of n. N means it's natural numbers. Natural numbers are positive whole numbers. So example of natural numbers would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and as far as you can go. What's not included in natural numbers is fractions, decimals, and no minus numbers are allowed. Okay? No fractions, no decimals. Okay? These numbers also aren't allowed. Okay? So with this in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to bring the x's over one side and the numbers over the other side. So what we'll get is 5x minus 3x greater than 3 plus 1. 2x is greater than 4. Now, this 2 is multiplied by x. This is 2 multiplied by x. When it goes on the right hand side, where we want to get rid of the 2, it's going to end up as division, which is 4 divided by 2. Therefore, x is greater than 2. Now, once again, we go to draw our number line, like so, and we put down our numbers. Now, it's very important to note that for this question, the number, there is no equal sign underneath. So to signify that the 2 is not included, because it's whole numbers, lads, because it's whole numbers, 2.5 and 3 aren't 2.5, 2 and 3/4, no fractions are included. So when it's x in element n, what you do is you dot all the whole numbers. So it starts off with all numbers bigger than 2. This means that it's got to be 3, 4, 5, and all the way on. Notice that I don't shade in the regions between the 2 points. This means that fractions and decimals are not included. Okay. Question 4. Anybody? X an element or step 1 is to bring the x's over one side and the numbers over the other side. So we get ax minus 3x is less than 9 plus 1. 5x is less than 10. Divide by the 5. X is less than 10 divided by 5. X is less than 2. All numbers that are smaller than 2, but they have to be x element R. Okay, so we start off with the number 2 because that's the highest one, and we need numbers that are below the number 2. Now we could go on, once again, we could go on forever. We're not going to go on forever. So you just pick a certain amount of numbers, then draw your arrow. Now, the number 2, I've made a mistake here. So I'm gonna, can anybody tell me the mistake I've made? I was told that it can't be 2. And what can't be 2 means is that I've put in a filled in circle. This means I've included 2. So to write that I don't want 2 included, what I need to do is I need to put a hollow circle over the 2. That's a hollow circle, and that means that anything up to 2 is included. So for instance 1.99 is included because of this shaded in line. But because of the circle around the 2, this means 2 is not included. This is a classic example of x is the element of r. All fractions and decimals are included. This question here, basically x element r, which means fractions and decimals are included, and minus numbers. So when you do your number line at the end, you should have a shaded in line. So first part is we're multiplying out 4x minus 8 greater than or equal to 5 times 2x is 10x, 10x minus 5, and then we have minus 9 here. We're going to tidy up a little before we move them over. So 4x minus 8, and then this side is going to be 10x minus 14. The next step here is minus 5 minus 9 is minus 14. Next step is to bring the numbers over one side and the x's over the other. This is the first example today where we're actually going to have a minus x on one side, and over the other side we're going to have minus 14 plus 8. Now, there's a special arrangement here to be done, okay? So it's going to be minus 6. Now, what happens is, guys, we see that it's a minus 6 this time. It's not a positive number. It's multiplied by minus 6, which means it's going to be divided by minus 6 over the other side. But the rule is, when you divide or multiply by a minus number, see the way the minus 6 crosses the sign into a division mode, you then have to reverse the sign. That is the only case where you reverse the sign, okay? And then x, therefore, is less than or equal to 1. It's not minus 6 divided by minus 6 is plus 1. Now, we know that x element r, so what has to be done here is that we have to write down all the numbers that are smaller than 1. Okay, so all the numbers that are smaller than 1, and what we get is the following. We get that it has to be shaded in, and 1 is included, so this shaded in dot means that 1 is included. Okay, and then we have the arrow over here, and then we shade it in all the way up to the arrow, and this is your answer for question 8. Okay. In this question here, what we do is we did what we did for algebra fractions. We ignore the right hand side until the end. Okay, so step 1 is it's a tail of 3 arrows. I've always told you this about fractions. It's a tail of 3 arrows. First arrow means you multiply 2 by 3. Second arrow means you multiply the 3 by the x, and the third arrow means you multiply the 2 by the x. Now you just write down your answers for this part. 2 by 3 is the blue arrow, which is 6. 3 by x is the red arrow, which is going to be 3x. And then plus 2 by x is 2x, which is the green arrow, okay? Now we know that this is greater than 5 over 6. So 5x over 6 is greater than or equal to 5 over 6. Now, what we're allowed to do, because the denominators on each side are the same, we're allowed to cross them off. Okay? Now, what we're left with is 5x is greater than or equal to 5. And after this, we now know that x is greater than or equal to 5 over 5. X is greater than or equal to 1. This means that we need all numbers that are greater than 1 and an element of r. So what we do here is we draw the line over, and we just say this is 1, 2, 3, arrow. 1 is included, and everything else is included in between. So just shade in all the way up to the line. And that is your answer for that question. For this question, what we know is that we have 3 of them. We have 2 signs, okay? Now to do this question, what you'll always do is you'll get the middle one. The middle one's the most important, okay? And what you do is you pretend that one of the signs doesn't exist. So for the first part, we're going to pretend that the less than 11 doesn't exist. If the less than 11 didn't exist, the question would look like this. Okay? And then for the second part, we're going to pretend that the minus 4 less than or equal doesn't exist. So this question would look like this. So basically, it's answering two questions together and merging your answers. Now, our rule is we always like the x's on the left hand side. There's two ways of doing this, and I'll show you both ways of doing it in this question, okay? The first way of doing this is to transfer the x to the left and the 4 to the right. If you do this, you're going to get minus 3x less than or equal to minus 1 plus 4. Minus 3x is less than or equal to plus 3. Now, since we have to get rid of the minus 3, we're multiplying by minus 3, which means over the other side we're going to be dividing by minus 3. And the rule is when you divide across the sign by a minus number, you have to change the direction of the equality or the inequality. This now turns into greater than or equal, and the x is now on its own. We know that the answer to this part is x greater than or equal to minus 1. I want you guys to have a quick look, okay? And the fact that I had a minus number in it can make it difficult. So everybody can observe that this answer took 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, okay? Now an alternate way of doing this, and it can avoid the minus signs altogether if you're not comfortable with the minus signs, is you can do what's called a spin, okay? If you spin it around, if you imagine you had 4 is smaller than 6, it's the same thing as saying 6 is greater than 4. So what I propose is we do a spin here, and when you do a spin or a flip, you turn everything around. So the 3x minus 1 ends up on the left. The sign also changes direction. So what this does is it basically negates the negative answer if that is your preferred way of doing it. And now all of a sudden you're dividing across by 3. And because you're dividing across by a positive number, you don't have to worry about flipping the sign. So x is greater than minus 3 over 3. And then you'll have x is greater than or equal to minus 1. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. It's roughly the same length, but avoids the minus part. This part over here, you bring over to 1. 3x is less than 12. Then what we have after this is x is less than 4. We have two specific answers for this question. We have greater than or equal to minus 1. So lads, keep an eye on your end point. 4 is your end point, and minus 1 is your start point. Okay? So what happens here is you draw your number line, and you start off with your minus 1, 0, and you go all the way up to 4. Now, an indication that you've got these questions right is it's going to be your numbers are going to be stuck in between your start and your finish. Okay. Now we go up and we check out that x is an element of z. This means that minus numbers are included. The greater than or equal sign means that the 1 is included. If you put it in, if you color it in, it means it's included. Minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Some people might use the hollowed out circle here. That's wrong. You only ever use the hollowed out circle for x element r. So never ever use the hollowed out circle for x unless it's x element r. 4 is not included, so your answer is minus 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. I was asked about x element z. X element z means that minus numbers are included, but decimals and fractions aren't. Hence why the parts in between the points aren't shaded in. Okay?